This is Warren Vanderhill with the Center for Middletown Studies School Consolidation Project, and this evening I'm interviewing Tim Heller, the Superintendent of the Muncie Community Schools. It's October 22nd, 2014. I'd like to begin, Tim, by thanking you for participating in this Center for Middletown Studies project. And I'd like to begin with a kind of general history question, and that is, could you tell me what role the Blue Ribbon Task Force on the future of the Muncie schools played in what ultimately became the school consolidation, the high school consolidation, or the high school merger?
Well, it was a key ingredient, no doubt about it. Now, that occurred when I was in another state on another job. But I followed that study, and as we began to look at reorganization or repurpose some of our buildings or maybe merge, we utilized that Blue Ribbon Task Force document. It was well done, and I wanted to give a lot of credit to the people that worked on that. Made copies, so the board had copies to study and to look at and to generate questions or concerns. So, and it was well done, and I credit the people that were involved. And matter of fact, for your research, I'll give you a copy of that that you can take with you. It's very well done, and it played a major part. And but yeah, we're glad to have it. Now we've had about 4 or 5 studies. Matter of fact, we're having a study as we're talking here today. We're having a facility study done by Performance Services, and what we're looking at is facility utilization and how we're using our space. And because we do have about $9 million bond money to work in some of our facilities as we need them. But we feel like we have some experts looking and making some recommendations to the board to help us spend that wisely. But we've had probably about 4 or 5 of those studies since probably '98.
Is this too premature to ask if there are any thoughts on what might be the future of Wilson?
Wilson, right now, it's back in our hands. See, when we closed that, we had to put that on the state charter list, and the state puts that on there, and we applied for a waiver to get that back as soon as possible, and it is back in our hands. Matter of fact, I'm going to have an executive committee or executive board tomorrow, executive meeting, and we're meeting in the Wilson building. Wilson, we're having it appraised right now, so we know what its worth is. We have had 2 or 3 interested buyers, so to speak. So we're not sure until the study whether we need to use it, repurpose it for another use, or sell it, lease it, and so it's a wonderful facility, and it's our newest building.
Yeah, I know. When did you and the board begin what I guess I would call really serious discussions about merging Central and Southside?
Well, for a number of years, Muncie Community Schools have been in cost containment, and a family member in your house can recall.
Sure.
We're always talking about cost containment.
Yeah.
And it's because we've been losing students. We've been averaging about 150 kids a year for several years. Back in the later 60s, early 70s, we had 19,000 students. Now we have 5,800. So we have closed 26 buildings since in the early 70s, since then. And we have been talking about trying to live within our means and be frugal spenders and do what's best for our kids, because we're trying to stop kids from moving away from us. And so naturally, the first thing we need to take a look at is our facility and our programming, course offerings. Are we competitive with our competition? And I think we are. We have 4 languages.
Right. Yeah.
So we have a pretty good curriculum. So to be quite honest with you, we have a board right now and a superintendent that was willing to say, hey, do we need all the buildings we have? Can we do some savings there and not hurt our school district not hurt the kids as far as programming is concerned. So we figured we need to take a good look at that.
Okay.
So we started probably in May, seriously, April or May. And then one thing led to another, and we said, well, let's make a decision by, I proposed January, and one of the board members said, let's do it, and let's move it back to about November so we can start this school year, this year we're in.
Give you enough lead time.
And have enough time to get, to do what we need to do in the building. So we just took off. And then on November 18th, I made a recommendation to the board, and then we started a transition.
Okay. So is it fair to say that, and I may state the obvious here, that the fiscal reality of the situation with the community, and specifically the Muncie Community Schools, really was the main driver in going to this one high school?
Yes, very much so. And we wanted to make sure that our elementary schools are wonderful. We didn't want to touch elementary right now. And our middle schools, it seems like we lose kids when they leave the fifth grade. Sometimes they opt to go somewhere else rather than follow up into our middle schools. So yes, financially, being able to maintain what we have with good programming, we just needed to see if we needed all the space we had. And we're still looking at that.
Yeah.
We probably have more space than we need right now.
Yeah.
But I look for that to be one of the suggestions that comes out of this facility study.
Okay. When you think now of the high school situation, how many different scenarios did you consider? I mean, now you have one high school, but I know along the line there were some discussions, some deliberations of other options. What were some of the other options?
Well, we had like A, B, C, D, and we put those on, you'll see in the documents there. We had those posted, and we had handouts in the room. A might be keep two high schools and maybe bring the 7th and 8th grade in there. So we had grade configurations along with 2 high schools, 1 high school, 2 high schools, 1 middle school. So there were some options, A through I think G or H or something like that. And naturally your grade configuration usually comes about due to the money you have and the space you have. And there were some philosophical differences. Some wanted to move the 6th grade back with the elementary. Some said no, and me in particular, I didn't like that too well because I think 6th graders need to be pushed a little bit more. They need to
Yeah, no, you're right.
be more like a
Yeah.
high school kid than an elementary kid at the 6th grade level.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an option, moving the 6th grade back, going to 7 through 12.
Yeah, I want to get on that one, because when I interviewed Tony Costello last week, he spent a little bit of time talking about 7-12 as an option. And, you know, what happened to that idea?
7 and 12 is a good option, but it probably would could cost you more staffing, could be a little bit more of an expense because you have to have licensed teachers in those areas that qualify to teach in both the middle school or junior high and the high school. So you got to be careful with your licensure. So, and I have been a principal at a 7 through 12 building, and it works very well. So it's not bad. Some people had a kind of a mindset that they didn't want their younger kids in with a high school.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
But you've been at a place where it worked, and it worked okay.
You just run separate programs and separate lunch programs as well. And yeah, it worked pretty well. It's not my favorite.
Right.
I think our configuration we have now is my favorite, K through 5,
Right.
6, 7, and 8, and 9 through 12. True middle school.
Yeah.
And those 6th graders in there with older kids so they can get prepared for high school. But a lot of people don't like that, so.
Could Southside have accommodated a 7-12?
No.
Okay, so you got a facility problem there too.
They didn't have the, you mean
Yeah.
just one school there, 7-12? Yeah, they could do 7-12.
Okay.
Yeah. They couldn't do one high school there.
Yeah.
It wasn't big enough for one high school there.
Okay.
Yeah. It'd been a little tight, but we could
You
maybe
could squeeze it
squeezed
in.
it in.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be ideal.
What role did the business community in Muncie play in any of this decision making?
Well, it plays a major role now in the merger.
Okay.
Well, we think the community itself, and not just the business, but those town meetings, we'd have 300, maybe 400 people. We had 4 of them. We had one at Northside Auditorium, one at Southside Auditorium, one at, well, I mean, each of the 4 secondary
Central,
schools. Yeah. So they were attended by 350 people. We passed out literature. We passed out the plans, Plan A, B, C, D. We also had cards that we passed out if I was in the 3rd row back there and didn't want to come up to the microphone and talk and ask questions to the board, or I field most of the questions from the. I tried to insulate the board, and the board observed what was going on, and I took most of the heat myself, and on purpose.
Yeah.
But they could fill out a card, and at the end of the evening, we collected those cards, and we tried to answer a lot of those cards. So we feel like it was very transparent, and people had a chance to weigh in. And then you'll maybe get to the merger in a little bit, but then once the merger kicked in, we had probably 550, 600 people involved on committees,
Okay.
making suggestions
Right.
to how we do.
Yeah.
We had about 20, 22 committees,
Mhm.
and we had a lot of people sit on those committees that made suggestions to, such as awards,
Mhm.
such as trophies, letter jackets, things like that
Yeah.
that are important to some people.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, I guess I asked the question because it's always interested me that groups like, I'm being more specific now, the Chamber of Commerce really don't get involved in a lot of this. I mean, I guess I tend to see, because the university, they try to at least to get involved quite a bit, but it's more seeing the school system as part of the economic development of the community. And so I guess the question I'm asking is, there really wasn't in this process any specific point in time where, say, the Chamber of Commerce really got involved in this.
that's exactly right.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you've been in other communities where the business community Chamber of Commerce may well play a bigger role.
Yes and no. That's why we had those town meetings. Anybody could participate,
Right.
and we would hope that some of the people would participate there.
Yeah.
We feel very strong, and you said what I say every time I make a presentation, is education is a big part of economic
Oh,
development.
sure, yeah.
And you don't hear that a lot, but it is.
Yeah.
One of the probably 3rd or 4th question a company would ask coming into Muncie, what kind of public school system you have? What kind of school system, period?
Yeah.
Do you have a workforce that, I need 1,900 people working in this. Do you have a workforce? Okay, then if I'm gonna bring those families in here, or I'm gonna advertise, come here and work for us, what kind of school system?
Yeah.
So it is a very big part of economic development. Yes, I agree with that 100%.
Was there any pressure applied during this whole process by what I call political entities in Muncie? I mean, did people try to get involved in this and see this maybe as a political issue? Or is it more, say, geographic with Southside and?
Yeah, I think it was more geographic.
Okay.
Yeah. They've been talking about this for 40 years, probably.
Yeah. On and off.
South is 50 years old.
Yeah, right.
They question whether it should have been built or not.
Yeah.
Okay. I interviewed for the South job probably 25 years ago. My last question in my interview was, where I'm from, I hear you're going to close Southside High School. This is the job I'm interviewing for.
Yeah.
Could you respond to
This
this?
is 25 years ago?
That's been every bit that.
Okay.
And anyway, I asked that question because it was on the street. That
Yeah.
might happen.
Yeah.
But that was what was rumored back then. When we looked at merging some schools, it wasn't a decision what we were going to do at Southside. It was what the board really wanted to do with all secondary schools.
Right. Yeah.
And we decided to leave the elementary alone. They're doing very well.
Yeah.
Now, some are very small.
Yeah,
We have 4 of them that are in the 200s.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you can have a neighborhood school of 200,
Mhm.
that's pretty good if you can afford it.
Right.
My brother-in-law was up here a number of years ago, and he lives in Orlando. And his kids went to public schools in Orlando, big schools. And I drove him around in the area, and I was over around Mitchell. And I said, now we have about 10 teachers there, and
Right.
probably less than 200 kids.
Yeah.
I don't know how long we can keep that open. He said, what do you mean? That's what people want.
Yeah, that's right.
What?
Oh, you're right.
That's a neighborhood school?
Yeah. No.
And so that stuck with me too.
Neighborhood schools with sidewalks.
Right.
What role, if any, did the teachers' union play in these kinds of conversations about merger and consolidation?
We had some meetings in the building with principals asking for suggestions for cost containment, living within our means. We collected those, and many of them had, space we don't need so many schools. So
Right.
we had the principals work with the faculty.
Okay.
Students we didn't involve really.
Mhm.
We let them speak at the forums.
Right.
Many of them did.
Yeah, I was going to say, many of them did. They took the opportunity. What do you think having a single high school now in Muncie says about the community's economic future?
Well, I think people from here and live here know that this is Rust Belt, and we need to be frugal spenders with what we have.
Right.
Somebody from the outside, a city of this size and one high school, if they look at the history, see how many kids we've lost each year, that would bother them a little bit. But I think if we do a better job of marketing our school and continue to be strong in curriculum, I think we'll be fine. We do have financial problems at this time, and until we get that worked out, and we lost $9 million this year. Now, what company? You tell me one company you can go in and say, you know what?
Yeah.
Give me $9 million. You just lost it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Now I'll be back next year, and you'll lose $5 more million.
Yeah.
At some point in time,
Yeah.
there's no money,
Yeah.
and it's kind of where we are right now. The day of reckoning is here.
Well, as you look at this as a senior administrator and a really experienced person, both in this state and in the state of Kentucky, how much have these property tax caps really impacted the educational system?
Well, this year, 7.5 million.
Okay. And there's just no way around that. I mean, you can't go to the people and say, let's vote on this, and stuff like they do in Michigan or
Right.
something. That's basically impossible,
Exactly.
because you know it's going to fail.
And it's going to be around. The legislature is not going to back off of that.
No.
They're not going to get reelected.
Yeah.
So that's here to stay. So we got to deal with that every year.
Well, you touched on this, but I'd like to ask you in a more specific fashion. What do you think having a single high school in Muncie says about the community's educational future?
Well, I don't know that it has an impact, and I would hope it would be positive because we had up to this year, for an example, last year we had 81 classes with less than 15 students. Okay, so putting those together, you can have more opportunities to offer more classes because you can combine some of those. So curriculum-wise, I think it's making us stronger,
Yeah.
really. And we've added, we have early college program now. And kid can get a year and a half worth of credits to go to school. But I don't see that as a detrimental to the community, as long as we have last year I think we had $8 million in scholarship dollars
Yeah,
that kids going
yeah,
to school.
yeah.
That'd be interesting to watch that this year after we put them together, see if we have close to that many kids being able to get scholarship dollars. Again, I think it's best practices, people doing their job in the classroom and offering the curriculum that's attractive to the people. Matter of fact, I kind of like myself. one high school because it's hard to get to everything, and it's hard to get to a lot of activities when you got two of everything. And for a while, we had three of everything. And so you can concentrate your efforts into the one high school, and I think it's.
I wouldn't ask this, except we both have a background in athletics that we share. What do you think it says about the athletic future of the schools? Because you get one argument that now it gives fewer students an opportunity to participate. Now you've got to really be good, like the old Bearcats in the days when I came here and there was only one high school.
Sure. Well, the opportunity is there, and I think if we make a good evaluation at the end of this year, and if we pull our kids and see that there's a number of kids that are not excelling that would like to, there's always an intramural program that could generate something like that to allow kids to have an activity to participate in. Our band, we have been very successful, and they probably have 150 to 160 kids playing instruments, 45 auxiliary corps. That worked very well, and they carried the torch for us for a long time before school started and the state fair competition.
I mean, symbolic. You could have made a documentary film out of that band out the state.
And it really helped us.
Yeah.
It really helped the merger. It really did. And I spoke to the football team very first game. And I said, the torch is being handed to you. You're taking it now. So do something with it and make us proud. We've had a kind of tough season in football this year. I think we only had 3 or 4 wins, but we got a real good shot. Friday night, I think we played Marion the last game. I think we got a good shot of winning. No, I'm sorry. We've already played that. We're in the playoffs now.
Right.
We play New Palestine, and they're very good.
Well, it takes time to build that back up.
Right. But athletics, I think will be very competitive. Another thing I like, people refer to them as country club sports, and I was principal at South, and sometimes we didn't score well in some of those sports.
Yeah, tennis.
Exactly.
Golf.
Exactly.
I know.
Now, golf, for example, a very good player from South was on, and I hate to do that because we don't allow the media to say, now, this guy scoring all these points over here now, is he a Southsider or is he a Central? We want that to die because, no, he's a Central player.
Yeah.
But some of these kids that have been on traditionally losing teams are now very happy, very proud that they're winning.
Yeah. No,
It's
I
kind of
agree.
fun.
I agree.
So there's something to say for that.
This is a Tony Costello question, but I want to ask you it, and I'm going to ask other board members, but it's one that came up in conversations with Tony. And Tony's been quoted in the paper on this. It goes like this. Some school board members are on record as saying that some local realtors are quite critical of the Muncie schools and in some cases steer prospective home buyers away from the community schools. What's your view of that?
I've done some research on that, and what I find and what people tell me, it's not so much that's occurring as it is if I'm a doctor and I live in Indianapolis and I'm coming to IUBMH. When I walk through the front door, the people I work with say, hey, you know what, you better put your kid in New York Times School. Hey, you got to put your kid out here at Delta. That's where you need to put your kid. They're influenced by who they work with a lot.
Okay.
Not so much the realtors. Sometimes, if I got a house I think I can sell you, I might push you in that direction, but they tell me it's a lot of the people that they work with making referrals to you when you arrive.
Okay.
So I think that is a factor.
Because I told Tony, I've heard the same thing about the university, and he agreed. You get
Yeah.
people at the university will say, well, you don't want your kids to go to Muncie school.
Right.
You want to be in Delta or Yorktown or something like that.
But you know what bothers me more than that? I pay people on the 5th and 20th, and a good percentage of those people I pay on the 5th and 20th, kids go to another school. That bothers me.
Well, you're getting into the significant change that's occurred at Ball State in the last 10, 20 years, and that's that people don't live here. that when we changed from quarters to semesters, we gave people the opportunity to have Tuesday, Thursday teaching schedules and Monday, Wednesday, Friday teaching schedules. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for this. Part of it's spouses and where they can find employment and things of that nature. But once we made that change from quarters to semesters in the 90s, you began to see an increase in the number of people that didn't have Muncie addresses or Yorktown addresses. They had Fisher's addresses or Noblesville addresses.
Right.
And that pattern has continued.
But what I tell my people here when I get an opportunity, we're trying to raise test scores, okay?
Right.
We're trying to have the best curriculum, these kinds of things. Just think if these teachers that are teaching for us, that are pretty good teachers, if their kids would come to our school,
Yeah, right.
how the test scores would go up, and attendance would go up,
Yeah, right.
and discipline would go down,
Yeah.
and, it makes sense because we're giving you a paycheck Friday on the 5th and 20th.
20, yeah.
Give us your kids.
Yeah, right. No, it's well put. What long-term effect do you think having a single high school will have on Muncie's sense of community?
Well, we hope it's positive. I hope that they have to build another school someday, or whether it be a high school, middle school, or whatever. I hope we grow enough that people want to come our way. But right now, I think if we work real hard and have good, I keep saying curriculum, but that's the nature of the beast. I mean, that's the important thing.
Right.
If we continue to offer what people want, short term, long term, I think it should be very positive. It's our responsibility to make it positive. And if it's not, why isn't it positive? The long range, it should be just as positive as it is now. And that's our job to evaluate that. That's why I went to Central today. I was there and I met 7. I said, I don't want to see 5 of them. You got 7. I want all of them. I don't want to come in here and say, oh, so-and-so had a problem, so-and-so. No, I'm going to come for 45 minutes. I'm going to see y'all and get them there. And I want to know, well, hey, what's just a little check on things, make a suggestion or two, take them, whatever. But I want to hear your concerns. I want to hear how things are going to continue to get better. We always, want things to be better. And give them an opportunity to take a shot at me. I can handle it. Something bothers you, tell me. We had a great session. It went over 45 minutes, but I felt very good about it, and I got some feedback from them. They just enjoyed being able to talk a little bit. And another reason I went there is being smart in supervision. All of you don't have to go to every basketball game. All of you don't have to go to every football game, but be smart about it. Make sure that you're covered so we don't have liability problems. But you got all these security people. If you strategically place these people, you don't have to have as many. Now, if you have 5 security people and you let 4 of them stand together and talk for 2 hours, you might as well have 1. Strategically place them so you're covered, and then hey, get out here tonight. You don't have to come tonight. We're covered. We got plenty. Keep that burnout. I'm constantly working in discipline every day. I got a ball game. I got one tomorrow night, and that gets old.
Yeah,
So
that's very well put.
another reason I was there was for that very reason.
I guess I asked that question in the sense of the south side of Muncie losing this very important point of identification that they had. I never felt that way about Muncie Northside. My daughter went to Muncie Northside, my son went to Central. But I never felt that this part of town identified as much with their high school, Muncie Northside, as Southside identified with their high school. I mean, you think that's a fair
I
assessment?
couldn't agree anymore.
Okay.
I was principal there.
Yeah.
I know that. They really are true rebels.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I said that athletic nickname really meant something.
Yeah.
Not the Titans, that didn't mean anything.
Well, and it was a kind of a struggle for me to make the recommendation. I'd been principal there 3 years. It wasn't a long time, but there were 3 great years, and we were making some noise, and I really enjoyed it. Yes, we are able to have an excellent middle school there now, and I see only great things down the road there. we get things going in the right direction. It's a wonderful facility. We got Newcastle wanting to swim there. They're having problems with their pool. You know, they want to come over and swim in the middle school. I mean, what middle school? You know, it's a wonderful building. So I think we can be proud that we have a middle school there now.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree with you. Well, those are all the formal questions I have, and I want to give you an opportunity to add anything you might like to add to this topic.
Well, I've talked a lot. I've probably said more than I need to. A question I wouldn't have been surprised if you asked if you were doing this over, what would you do any differently? I don't know that I have a list for that, and I've thought about that. The only thing, maybe, it's very controversial, but maybe we didn't close enough schools. That would be something that I would.
You mean that you should have taken a bigger bite of the apple
Yeah.
at the time that you did this?
Yeah, because you don't get a chance to do that all the time.
If you're gonna take the pain, might as well take the big.
Take it and get it over with, yeah. And that's one thing I think I would encourage the board for us to take a serious look at. Is this enough? So
Yeah.
that's the only.
Well, you know, the context I put a lot of this in, because my wife, as you know, spent most of her teaching
Right.
career on the south side of town. She's the one that did the real work of the family. But I think about it because the south side of Muncie, on these other studies I've done, on economic development, the closing of all the plants, and talking to the old union leaders, I mean, this is a part of this community that's been battered for the last couple of decades. I mean, they've lost all their jobs, all these UAW positions are
Right.
there. So the heart of the economic underpinning of what that part of town really stood for, it's all gone. Now you come along and you close the other point of identification they've had, which is the Southside Rebels and their high school. So, I mean, is that a fair thing to say to people on the south side? You know, we have to understand that your loss isn't just your high school. Your loss is in a much larger economic context.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, because you were there as principal and knew that a lot of these kids went right from there to work at Delco and Chevy and Gear and places like that into well-paying blue-collar jobs. And now the jobs aren't there anymore.
Right. No, I agree. It was a big blow, no doubt about it. I just hope that, I really think it's going to be advantageous, but it's tough getting to it right now. People.
You know, another kind of sidebar thing, and one of the things that Tony gave to us, it was a timeline, I guess, the two of you used for some presentations, PowerPoint things. And there was a mention in there of a technical high school. Do you recall the discussions that we might want to have a tech high school in town or something like that?
Well, I don't know if this was what you were talking about. We looked at one time to go into called a new tech high school.
I think that's probably it, yeah.
And we visited Rochester.
Yeah.
Some are moving away from that, so I'm kind of glad we didn't do that.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful vocational school,
Yeah.
and we can't get, we got 400 some kids out there,
Right.
but we need to fill that place up because we have some good programs.
Yeah.
We have Project Lead the Way with biomedical science. We have some wonderful programs, and we have a lot of workforce development meetings out there looking at what we need to be offering. We can't get our minority kids to go out there. They just won't go. But that's a kind of diamond in the rough. Facility's getting old. We looked at maybe moving that to Wilson. But they've got some programs out there that would cost quite a bit to move, so we backed off of that thought. We looked at closing this building here. Savings of closing this building is only about $178,000. Well, all the technology brains in this building, so you'd have to move all of that.
Right.
And AT&T said it cost $51,000 to move it. So you're only going to save 178, and then you're going to lose another 50 something.
Yeah.
And where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You're going to crowd in someplace else. So we backed off of this one. This one everybody wants closed. I think this is the ivory tower, you know.
Yeah.
And it's an elementary school. And
Yeah.
it serves us well.
Yeah.
When this is set up for a board meeting, it's impressive.
Yeah.
But with the technology located here,
Right.
that makes it kind of cost prohibitive to just walk away.
Yeah. I would agree with you. Well, thank you very much for
You bet.
participating in the project. I really appreciate it.